Welcome, Neale. It is such a privilege to spend some time with you this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, and to have you share your incredible wisdom and beautiful perspective with me and my audience. Neale is a New York Times bestselling author, as all of us know. And Neale, I have to tell you that this is a very profound moment for me because 20-something years ago in college, my Bible was the trilogy Conversations with God series. It really inspired me much more than my Christian background growing up. And the reason is that you showed me a perspective that prayer was not just a beseeching or an asking, but that it was a moment to listen. And it was during that time in college that I wrote down an answer that was during the Great Shift. You will start having conversations with people that will uplift and inspire them to empower themselves and their lives. And I truly feel that we are in the Great Shift. And I am beyond honored that you are here. And I know you've impacted many people, and I know you have probably heard similar stories all your whole life, but I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Those are very generous words, Josette, and I appreciate every one of them. You're very kind to me, and I want to say to your audience that while I may have shifted a number of people into a new way of thinking about God, it's not my purpose, nor is it my intention to somehow denigrate either the Christian tradition or any actually faith-based tradition, whether it might be Islam or Judaism or Buddhism or any other faith-based tradition. It's not my intention. My intention is simply to bring forth to people another idea, an additional idea, perhaps in some ways an expanded idea of who and what God is, who we are, the purpose of our life, and how it all interacts together to allow us to move forward with an agenda of the soul. So if my work in the past 25 years has done nothing more than cause people to stop and think and maybe take another look at concepts and ideas that we thought were put on the shelf and already handled, then I've done what I came here to do. But it's not about making anybody wrong. In fact, I make a point of saying, I want to add this, Josette, if I might, I make a point of saying in the Conversations with God books, that the religions of the world, and by the way, there are, in case you're not aware of it, 4,300 of them. You can Google that. Just go to Google and type in how many religions are there in the world, and you'll come up with an astonishing reply. 4,300 known religions now being practiced in the world. And the point that I make in the books is not that any of those religions are wrong in what they're teaching or sharing, but simply that they're incomplete. It's possible that there's more to know on this subject of God and life and who we are and what is really going on here. So it seems to me that we are like children who have learned how to add and subtract, but we think that's all there is to mathematics. And of course, there's a great deal more to mathematics than simple addition and subtraction. And there's also, I want to suggest, a great deal more to the whole topic of divinity and life and our true nature than is contained in some of the marvelous teachings of the world's great religions. Those teachings are very powerful, and many of them are right on the mark, or they wouldn't have lasted as long as they have lasted. So let's be real clear about that I want to honor all of the world's religions, but I simply want to ask them, would you be willing to open the doors to even more new thinking about this topic? I'd like to ask a piercing question around the world wherever I go. Is it possible, just possible, that there might be something we don't fully understand here about God and about life and about ourselves, the understanding of which would change everything? I think, Josette, that the answer is yes. Yes, there is something we don't fully understand here. And that's a topic that I think it would be well for us as a species to continue to deeply explore and not slam the door shut on any further discussion because we're calling it, blasphemy or apostasy or heresy. We should simply call it theology. Theology, by the way, is not a statement of what is so. Theology, the definition of theology is the study of God, and that should never stop. So that's my opening comment. We could go from there with any other question you may have, but I wanted to make that real clear so that people don't think I'm anti-religion, because I'm not.
And it is clear, and I'm so grateful that you said that in such a beautiful and profound way, that it's almost as if we have to kind of relinquish control of what we think we know to allow more knowledge to come in, because like you said, the knowledge of which, or the even being open of which, could change everything in our lives.
Yes, God said to me in conversations with God, you can't hope to know me if you think you know everything about me already. So there are great theologians through the years who have continued that exploration, and they're doing so up to this very minute. So I think, to repeat, that it's a wonderful idea for us to continue moving forward. This is, by the way, how every great advancement has been made in civilization. Medical science has moved forward because we've been willing to say, what if there's more to this subject? We have a lot of answers. We've discovered a lot of wonderful things, but what if there's more to know? And so we look into the face of what we already know and push forward. The same thing we've done in technology, creating marvelous technological advances. We've done the same thing in science. We continue to experiment and experiment, even though we think we already know the answer to a particular scientific problem. So, but somehow or another, in the area of spirituality, it's become not okay to ask questions and to continue pushing the envelope, to continue moving forward and advancing the exploration. Somehow in the area of spirituality, we've got it that, it's not okay to do that. And in fact, in certain countries, you can actually be brought up on ecclesiastical charges for even questioning the prior assumption. So what I say in the Conversations with God material and in my new book, The God Solution, is that we need to do something very brave. We need to be idea heroes, heroic enough to say, is it okay if we simply question the prior assumption? We're not even making it wrong. We're simply questioning the prior assumption. And that's what the Conversations with God dialogue books offer us an opportunity to do. And that's what the God Solution, the brand new book I've just finished writing and which has just been published, that's what that book invites us to do, to question the prior assumption.
Well, I'm so glad that you dovetailed into that, because I was just going to say, this book, I've had the privilege of reading it, and you continue to drink from a deeper well, so to speak, and offer up. It feels like the God Solution, and I'm glad that you said so. It's out now. It has now been published.
Yes, the God Solution was published just 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to us making this interview recording. And it's now available at major online bookstores such as Amazon.
Fantastic. And this was actually one of my, if not my favorite book from you. And I'm very curious as to, first of all, for the viewers, I'm not going to give anything away, but this book feels to me almost like a little bit more of a driver's manual, so to speak. It feels, it gives a very deep insight and perspective, as you always have. But it really dissects, I don't know if that's the right word, a depth that I didn't go into. And you start off the book quite deeply with some amazing statistics. Did you know that when you were writing this book, did you have some sense that it would be published and released during probably one of the greatest shifts that we've ever encountered as a humanity?
Well, the answer is yes, because I only wrote the book in August of 2020, and it was written very, very quickly. and I sent it to a number of publishers, and the publisher who agreed to do it uh, realized, in their opinion, that it was a very important book, so important that they said they want to put it out immediately. I mean, they put it on the fast track. You know, I've had 39 books published. It's rare to get a book from your computer to the bookstores in less than a year. 9 or 10 months at the least. They did this in 2.5 months. In 2.5 months, they put this book into the process, and it's been now out there in the online bookstores, and will be in the brick and mortar stores, I'm certain, as well, very soon. So the Phoenix Books, who published this book, said to me, you know, we need to get this book out right now, because this is a timely book, precisely because of what's happening in the world today, because of the incredible global pandemic, the global economic impact of that event, the racial injustice that we're seeing evidenced more and more in all the countries of the world in many different ways, and the other trials and travails that we are facing as a civilization. Never before has a book like The God Solution been so badly needed. And the book does start off. The book begins with a very powerful question. If there is a God, and the book does not, by the way, presume that there is. It starts off asking, if there is such a thing as God, what good is it doing us? Why is the world in the mess that it's in? What's going on here? If God, if you're out there, where are you? Hello, hello, hello. Where are you? And what is it that we don't know about how to interact with you if there really is a God? That we would be well to know. And that's what the book really addresses. You're perfectly right. It's a driver's manual, nice way to put it, because the book answers that question. The book says, wouldn't it be a shame if there really was a higher power and we were simply not using it in the way it was designed to be used? What a waste. What an incredible waste. And so the book offers the answer to that question. Yes, there is a way to use this incredible higher power. And if all of us, or enough of us, began to do so, we'd see a shift and a change in our collective reality. And I think it begins with one solution. Is it possible that we could come to a single understanding, one, I want to call it one umbrella, kind of an umbrella understanding, a single statement that all the world's 4,300 religions could agree on with regard to who and what God is? Can't we just settle on a simple definition of the divine? You know what's interesting, Josette? Statistics have shown, and there have been archaeological surveys that have been taken of our cultures and our societies over the past 50 years. And consistently, even as recently as 5 years ago, those surveys show that 8 out of 10 people believe in some sort of higher power. There's a great irony here. We agree about a higher power existing, but we can't agree about what it is, what it wants, what it demands, what it requires, what it gives us, how to use it, what it offers, and how we can interact best with it. We can't seem to agree on that. And so we've created 4,300 different religions telling us how we can answer those questions. All because we can't simply agree on a simple statement about this higher power. So what the book, The God Solution, offers is a new definition of God that it invites humanity to embrace collectively. A 2-word definition.
I love it.
Oh, you think I'm going to tell you the 2-word definition? No, you have to go out and... No,
I know it, but I think everybody needs to go out and read this book.
No, you know what? I'm having fun here. Of course, I'm going to give you the definition that I think might change the world. What if we decided, what if every religion and every culture, every nation and every person decided, put simply, that God is pure love? Now, when I've lectured on this in the past week or two to new audiences, a lot of folks have said, oh, wow, big revelation. God is love. We already know that God is love. seen it embroidered on pillows. We've seen it on signs and billboards. We already know that God is love. But I say, no, 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 just a minute, just a second. I didn't say God is love. I said the new definition is that God is pure love, which is a particular kind of love. And the difference between the love that we express in our daily life, most of us at least, for other people and for life itself, the difference between that and pure love is this. Pure love wants and demands nothing. It needs nothing in return. I want to repeat that. Pure love needs and demands nothing in return. Can we believe? Can we bring ourselves to believe in a different kind of God who needs and demands nothing in return for God's love and for God's blessings? Or must we insist on believing, no, 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 Neale, you don't understand. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to obey the rules or God won't let you into heaven. And here's one of the saddest rules I ever heard of. I was born and raised, I don't want to be critical of any particular religion, so I won't mention the particular religion, but I was born and raised in a particular religious environment in which I was taught that if people do not embrace God in exactly the same way that I did, holding the same truth that I embraced in my life, if they did not do that, if they believed in God, but simply in a different way, they're going straight to hell when they die. It doesn't matter how nice they were, how kind they were, how compassionate they were, how caring they were, how patient they were, how understanding they were, how forgiving they were, how generous they were. None of that matters. You could be the nicest person in the world, but you happen to be raised or brought up in a culture where this particular religion wasn't your faith tradition. So you belong to a different faith tradition, and God says, sorry, Deb's the rules. I guess you're going to go to hell and suffer eternal damnation because you didn't belong to the right religion. Excuse me? Excuse me? And you know what's sad about that? Not that millions of people, I'm going to say billions of people believe that to be true. But what's sad is that we have used this model as our model, as the model for our behavior as human beings. If it's good enough for God to be judgmental and condemning and punishing, then it's good enough for us to be judgmental, condemning, and punishing. So we have based our behavior on the model that's been given to us by many of the world's religions about who and what God is. So if we could change the model, if we could be brave enough, idea heroes, brave enough to say, wait a minute, maybe there's something we don't fully understand here about God and about life and about each other. If we could be brave enough to embrace a notion that God loves us with pure love, that needs and demands nothing in return, it would create a new global ethic, a new way for us to behave based on a new model of the highest power in the cosmos. And if we can see that brand new model and bring it down to our own politics, our own economics, our own social interactions, and yes, our own spiritual traditions, everything in the world could change virtually overnight. So that's the challenge and that's the opportunity that's facing humanity now. Is it possible that there's something we've gotten wrong here about God? I only ask the question, what if God loved us as much as, your grandfather loved you? What does a grandfather do? I make the illustration in the book. I talk about a grandfather who's at a birthday party, and I do this in my lectures. Actually, I don't think this is in the book, but I tell the story in the lectures. And it's his 3-year-old granddaughter's birthday, and she's all excited. All the kids in the neighborhood have been brought in by mommy, and out comes the birthday cake, with the 6 candles on it. And the 6-year-old, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so excited! My favorite cake, mommy made my favorite cake, and she reaches for the cake and knocks over knocks over her glass of milk, which knocks over the next child's glass of milk, which knocks over the next child's glass of milk, as it happens, and the table is awash with milk. And the party is ruined. All of mommy's advanced, preparations and the decorations and everything. And grandpa, who's sitting next to his granddaughter, says, "What's the matter with you? You should know better. Go to your room and don't come out for the next 14 years. I don't want to see your face for the next 14 years. I'll teach you to disobey. I'll teach you to not be careful. I'll teach you to make mistakes like that." That's what most grandfathers would do, right? Of course not. Most grandfathers would say, "It's okay, sweetie. I forgive you." Right? No, not even that. Grandpa wouldn't say, "I forgive you," because Grandpa would know that forgiveness is not part of the equation. You know what Grandpa would do with that child in the moment of its devastation as it's crying at its own mistake? He would embrace her, give her a big hug, and say to her, "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. It was a mistake. I love you, and I will never stop loving you." And you know what? I have this crazy notion that God is at least as nice as my grandpa. Let's leave it at that.
You do have a tendency to get people crying, do you not? In a beautiful way. It feels to me that this is all undeniably where we must be heading, is it not? Because where we are now, and clearly perhaps the inspiration, do you feel that you were inspired to write this book because we are at this paradigm shift? We're at this great shift in time.
There's no question about it.
Right.
Look at our civilization. Let me tell you the kind of civilization we have. We have a civilization in which, in many countries of the world, we actually kill people by government fiat, that is, government action. The government officially kills people in order to teach people that killing people is not okay. And we fail to see the contradiction. We call this the death penalty, ignoring completely the advice of one of our greatest thinkers ever, Albert Einstein, who made a very clear statement. You cannot solve any problem using the same energy that created it. But no, we're going to solve the killing with more killing, end the violence with more violence, bring an end to anger with more anger, bring an end to injustice with more injustice. We're going to pour fuel on the fire and hope that the fire will go out, because we don't see what we're doing, or we can't admit, God forbid, that we've misunderstood something very basic. And so we've created a civilization in which 1.5 billion people, not 1.5 thousand, not 1.5 million, I said 1.5 billion people go through their entire lives without one drop of clean water. Where 1.7 billion people don't have electricity in their homes even today. Where 2.6 billion people do not have indoor plumbing and have to relieve themselves outside. You heard me right. This is going on today in the 21st century. This is how we care for each other. This is how we interact with each other. Wait, it gets worse. Do you know that on this planet right now, 653 children die of starvation every year? No, I'm sorry, I meant every month. No, I'm sorry, I meant every week. I'm sorry, I keep getting this statistic wrong. I meant every day. Wait a minute. The actual statistic, I keep mismemorizing it. 653 children die of starvation every hour. Every hour on this planet. And we call ourselves an advanced civilization. Is it possible, just possible, that there's something we don't fully understand here? The understanding of which would change everything.
And does it get to the point where people, it gets so bad that people start to care enough? And I say that because I know that transformation normally never happens when everything's all great and happy and wonderful.
Can't get much worse than it is right now. If this isn't the bottom of the barrel, I'd like to know what is. We have a pandemic that's now mutating and turning into a new kind of virus that's mutating out of the virus that's already savaged humanity. We have economic despair that's touching families in every country of the world. We have racial injustice that's revealing itself and showing itself from country to country to country, where the people in power who wear badges and also have other authority misuse that authority and create racial injustice. We live in a strange, strange world where we're simply not treating each other in a way which allow us to say yes to the fundamental question. I've invited people in the book, The God Solution, to simply find a measure by which we could determine how we are acting as a civilization. And the question is this: when you look at anything that you're seeing, when you're reading a headline in the newspaper, when you're seeing something on television, when you're hearing something on the radio, when you're becoming aware of something across the street or even across the room of your house, ask yourself a simple question. Does it feel like pure love is now being expressed? Does this feel like an expression of pure love? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is, well, I don't know that that feels like pure love to me. I mean, is it pure love when you see that two people cannot rent an apartment or is not allowed, they're not allowed to get a marriage license, or they can't rent an apartment because they happen to be of the same sex? Is that an expression of pure love? Is it an expression of pure love when we realize that some people are not allowed to go to school or not allowed to even drive because they're not male? Is that an expression of pure love? Is this how God would express pure love? Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have the right appendages. You're not male, so we can't let you drive a car. We can't let you vote. We can't let you inherit the family's estate because you're only, according to the law of our land, half a person. You think I'm making this up? This is the law in countries that exist right now in this year of our life. What are we doing? What kind of civilization is it? Oh, we call it culture. This is our culture. Excuse me? Might there be a solution to all of the challenges we're facing that we're simply overlooking? How about if we simply expressed pure love in our interactions with everyone? And if you don't mind, in our interactions with ourselves. Can I love myself purely enough to allow it to move through me, in me, as me, out into the world and touch other people in the way I would like to be touched? Whatever happened to the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have it done unto you. Really? Has that become the gold standard of human civilization? Actually, I don't think so. What would it take for us to grow up? It would take the God solution, a new model of behavior that could then trickle down to all the rest of us here, a behavior that we could imitate and feel good about doing so. That's what I call the God solution. And then in the second half of the book, I discuss exactly how to do that, how to use the mechanics of metaphysics in your own day-to-day life and apply the energetics of the universe to the challenges that you're facing in your moment-to-moment experience. So thank you for giving me a chance to talk about what's in that new book.
And I love this because when I got to that section, it really did two things for me. The first thing is it gave me that manual and an understanding. But importantly, it turned the responsibility back to myself, and that is empowering. When you realize, when you talk about metaphysics and in essence, your conscious creation of your life, and you're giving everyone an opportunity to stop being disempowered, to stop putting all the power in whoever be, and to live from a heart space and to create from that heart space their life and to take responsibility. You're basically cutting everybody off the hook and saying, this is, it's between you and you to decide what pure love you're putting out in the world. Am I right?
I believe that you are, and that's my understanding as well. And so I think that we each have a very powerful role that we can play. And when we step into the living of that new model of life and love and that new model of what it means to be human, when we step fully into that role, make no mistake about it, we will touch other people's lives. Other people will notice it. They will look at you and see the way you interact with everybody in your life, not just the person across the room or the person across the pillow, but the person across the counter at the post office and the person across the street wearing a badge and doing her best to protect those that she serves. When we act in that way and step into that new model of being human, people notice it and they'll come up to you and say to you, "What? Wait a minute. I've been watching you and how you are. What is it you know? What is it that you know that I don't seem to understand about life and about myself?" You know, I want to share with you a question that I'm often asked through the years when I do interviews like this. People say to me, "Neale, you wrote 9 dialogue books and 39 books in all in the Conversations with God body of work. What's the single most important message that you've received in all of that experience, in that whole experience?" I say to them, "Well, I can answer that question like this because I remember the moment vividly. I asked God, what does it take to make life work? What have I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle? Somebody tell me the rules. I'll play. I promise I'll play. Just give me the rule book. And after you give me the rule book, don't change it. Because my experience is that you keep changing the rules, or the world does, every time we turn around. So what is it that would really make life work?" And I remember God's answer. She was so sweet, chuckling. It was not a derisive chuckle, not demeaning. It's just the kind of chuckle you might have when you're watching a 3-year-old child trying to figure something out. She just smiled at me, chuckled, and said, "Neale, it's really quite simple. You think your life is about you, and your life has nothing to do with you. Your life is about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it." And when you grasp that and embrace that as your understanding of life itself, watch your life change. And so now I've learned to walk that path. Do I achieve it? Do I accomplish it? Am I at that level in every single interaction, in every single moment of my life? Of course not. But at least now I know the path I want to be on. At least now I know the road I want to take. At least now I know the agenda of my soul. At least now these things are clear to me. And so I say something in my mind. I don't say it out loud. I don't want to say it out loud because I don't think people would understand, frankly. But I say it in my mind, just to myself, whenever I encounter anyone, whether it's the person across the pillow, the person across the room, or the person across the street, or the stranger across the world that I happen to be encountering. I say the same thing in my mind. I have come that you may have life and that you may have it more abundantly. Your life will be made better because I passed this way. I promise you. Do that for 90 days. Dare you. Dare you, dare you, double dare you. Do that for 90 days and see if you don't feel entirely different about yourself, about life, about God, and about all the other people whose lives you will touch.
I
I
love,
could, of course.
yeah, I love that you're saying this. My story is similar to what you just spoke about. And I'll briefly, my viewers already know my story, but I had advanced rheumatoid arthritis 10 years ago and was given a very poor prognosis. That I had a list of medical, pharmaceuticals that I was going to have to take that would take 15 years off of my life. My son was just an infant at the time, and I wasn't unable to hold him because none of my joints were functioning properly. I lost the use of my left elbow with almost immediately. And I made a conscious decision that I was going to try another way. I was going to go natural, even though every expert that I spoke with said I was crazy. I had a good, what I feel was a good connection. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I had to trust the voice in my heart. So I decided not to go on any of the treatments, and I ended up doing a natural, healing, but more so I also reread the Conversations with God series, which was catalyst for me. A year later, I was declared a medical miracle by UCLA, and I ended up creating a fairly large audience and a large dance program that's globally renowned around the world. And one of the things that I tell people every day, that my story isn't for me. So just what you just said. My story is to stand as a lighthouse for those who are seeking to know if it's possible to live a greater, more profound existence. So if more of us continue to spend our time and have the courage to live from that place that you're speaking of, do you think it's possible that we can shift? I mean, is there any other way? And I have to say, I've lived in one of those countries that was extraordinarily culture based, where women were certainly kept under the thumb. And I am curious, as a practical matter, how to bypass all that culture and lift each other and lift them up, lift each other up, uplift each other with this God solution. How do we get there?
By encouraging people to embrace whatever their culture, whatever their race, whatever their religion, whatever their political party, whatever their nationality, whatever their gender, by encouraging people to embrace a single notion, a single uniform understanding of who and what divinity is, an understanding that I can't imagine anybody could seriously disagree with, that says God is pure love. And then by agreeing collectively that all of our ethical choices and decisions, whether they're laws we're creating or cultural norms that we are creating or responses to any incoming energy that we are creating, to use as our new cultural ethic the notion that it must be a demonstration of pure love that seeks or has as the intention never to damage or hurt another person, never to damage or hurt or limit the freedom and the opportunity for full self-expression of any other human being on the earth. And for that matter, anywhere in the cosmos. Thank you very much, because there is intelligent life elsewhere. They may not be on Earth, but there is elsewhere in the universe. So that the answer is to move enough people into the marketplace of ideas with a new thought about it. That's why we call this the New Thought movement, to move enough people into the marketplace of ideas to allow them to consider, is it possible? Maybe I don't agree with with Neale Donald Walsch, but am I willing to at least explore the possibility? Is it possible that there's something we don't fully understand here? Because if what we've been taught by our philosophies, our cultures, and our religions is so right, why is the world in the situation that it's in? Maybe we need a new idea. You know, Galileo, a few hundred years ago, was brave enough to suggest that the sun did not revolve around the earth, that the earth revolved around the sun, even though the church taught, the Catholic Church taught, that the sun revolved around the earth. The earth was the center of the universe, so the church said. And it excommunicated Galileo. And it wasn't until 350 years after his death that the Catholic Church rescinded the excommunication and said, maybe we were wrong about that. Perhaps Galileo had something there. Looks as if the earth revolves actually around the sun. Ignaz Semmelweis was a doctor in Budapest who suggested about somewhere around 1847 or 1853, somewhere in there, that it would be good to actually wash our hands in antiseptic lotion, in some kind of an antiseptic, between surgical procedures. Do you think so? Because we probably could reduce infant mortality rates. Doctors believe this, and I'm not making this up. Doctors were coming from the morgue where they were doing autopsies and going right from the morgue into the maternity ward and birthing babies. And they couldn't understand, without washing their hands with antiseptic, and they couldn't understand why the infant mortality rate was so high until Dr. Semmelweis said, you know what? There's a thing called germs. Nobody believed in germs. They didn't believe in the medical profession in such a thing. They said he was totally wrong. They drummed him out of the medical profession. The poor man died in an asylum because he began to think that maybe I'm crazy. Only 50 years later did the medical profession say, well, let's give it a try. Let's see, maybe he might have had something there. And the mortality rate, of course, of not just infants, but all the patients dropped dramatically. And they all went, I see. Maybe we didn't have all the answers. I could give you a list as long as your arm of idea heroes who thought that they might be right about something that most of us swore they were absolutely wrong about. So I pose this dangerous question. Could we be wrong about God? Is it possible that God is at least as nice as my grandpa? I only ask the question.
Neale, I know in my heart, and I know others have probably told you this too, you have made one of the most crucial impacts on this planet for so many masses of people. And it is in gratitude and love that I am so excited to share your new book. I hope everyone goes out and gets The God Solution by Neale Donald Walsch. And I want to thank you for just planting the seed, because I know that because of your courage to be a catalyst for change and to be an idea hero, which you are, that all of us then are a little bit more inspired and empowered to do the same. And
You're very kind in the things you're saying to me, Josette. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. And I want to make one final point, because there are those who might think, boy, he's really out there hawking his latest book. He's just always talking about the latest book. I want you to know this is not about hawking the latest book. This is not about trying to sell more and more copies. In fact, I have been placing the book in its entirety, excerpt by excerpt, in a series of excerpts, the entire book, on my Facebook page, where people can read it at no cost whatsoever. So I don't want anyone to think, oh boy, he's really out, he just wants to sell more books. You know what? Read it on Facebook, but for goodness sake, read it and listen to it and take a look at, maybe there's something we don't fully understand here about God, about life, about ourselves, that could change everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for amplifying your message. And thank you for inspiring the world. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. You're very generous, and I appreciate it. You're very kind. Bye
Thank
for
you.
now.
Bye. Thank you.